Thanks to Ting for sponsoring this video. We went from paper to screen in what seemed like a blink of an eye. And now we're making another change. Phones and smartphones have really been designed around one shape. Some fold, some slide, some flip, and some definitely flop, but they've all been engineered for some part to go to your ear, some part to go to your mouth. But making phone calls now is just such a small part of the giant device equation. And when you look at the direction that smartphone design has been trending, actually making phone calls is becoming such a less important design cue when it comes to these new devices. So when you look at the Microsoft Duo, it's easy to look at it as just another novel form factor of a smartphone. But the more I used it, the more I realized it's not a phone. It's much, much more. Let me explain. So the Duo is the first, I guess, phone in a long time that takes a totally different approach to smartphone design. We've seen like foldables before, but in one of their forms, whether closed or open, they look like regular phones that do something else. The Duo is completely unique. When it's closed up, screens in, you can't use it. And when you open it up, it's much wider than a traditional phone. Everything about it is just different than what we're used to. From like essentially the first time you take the Duo out of the box, I think you're struck by just the sheer thinness of, I'm just gonna call it a phone, because I don't know what else to call it. I wanna avoid the overused or hyperbole term of engineering marvel, but there is some crazy engineering that went into making this thing possible. And this is a just ridiculously awesome hinge. I don't know how else to describe it. The hinge is amazing in every way. 360 degrees, it goes all the way around. There's no hinge wobble. You could stop it at any number of those degrees and it will stay there. The fact that it does all of that while having electronic components going back and forth, those screens can talk to each other, is even more ridiculous. So hats off to Microsoft for that hinge. It does come with some drawbacks though. Despite it being so cool, there is a very visible gap between those two screens. So when you're holding it and you've got the phone in front of you, you can see light coming in between it. And that's not even to say the giant bezels that are inside of that. It's something that you have to get used to, but the quality of the displays are really good. I mean, they're AMOLED, so you'd expect the colors to be bright and black to be black. But the quality of how things look on it is certainly subjective. To my eye, the screens looked absolutely amazing. The Duo is also Gorilla Glass 5 on the front, on the inside, on everything. So it's not sort of that magnesium alloy you might expect from Surface products. But that also means, because the whole thing's Gorilla Glass, you can actually fold its screens out and keep it in your pocket that way if you want to. It's actually how I use it. So when I pulled it out, I could use it a lot quicker than having to open it all the way up, but personal preference. So after using the Duo for about 2 weeks, I'm still struck by how amazing this phone feels in the hand. It's something so different that I haven't seen before, and that novelty still hasn't worn off. All right, so that's just one part of the phone, that's the hardware. The software though, kind of what makes everything work, is different as well, and quite frankly, it's complicated. So Microsoft is viewing the Duo as a two-screen phone, not a foldable. And while to us, that difference might be unclear, I think to them and the direction they want to take the line makes a ton of difference. So here's how Microsoft envisions people using the Duo. Essentially, it's single tasking multiple apps. So having two apps running side by side on each screen. And in that aspect, the Duo absolutely delivers. When you have two separate apps doing two separate things, you can appreciate the direction Microsoft is going and what the Duo is capable of doing. Having email on one and social media feed open on another, it's an awesome experience. The other vision is screen extension. So for right now, it's mostly first-party Microsoft apps and some select third-party apps like the Kindle that can sort of take advantage of those two displays while using one app. So in Outlook, for example, when you open an email, it'll jump over screens. That's cool to have, and that adds utility to what you'd get over a traditional phone. And also some other cool stuff are happening that Microsoft envisions you using on a daily basis. You could open the launcher from either side, and whatever side you open the app on, it'll open on that screen. So other cool stuff that's happening here is keyboards. Because of the big form factor, you have it open, you can't really hold it and do big typing. So Microsoft has a Swift key on here. You open up an app on the right screen, the keyboard's gonna come up on that screen and right align. If you do it on the left, it'll align on the left. It's a small tweak that makes sort of one thumb typing on this really easy to use and sort of lends itself to a premium, elegant experience. Also something that Microsoft has here is app groups. So you can sort of select one icon that you create that'll open two things up. So maybe it's YouTube and Twitter, or whatever it might be for you. It's nice to have. I didn't use it that much and I kept forgetting. My use case tends to differ on day to day and task to task, but there are two things that you do all the time. It works really well for things like that. If you needed another sign that Microsoft isn't viewing the Duo as a traditional smartphone, it's the camera. It's 11 megapixels, there's only one of them. And I'm kind of looking at it more like a webcam than I am a traditional smartphone camera. Photos aren't great that come out of it. They're fine, and they're probably on the low end of average when it comes to photos across the smartphone space. But the fact that you can move it around, use it for different angles depending on how you arrange and fold the device, does give it a lot more utility than really any other single camera out there. And what it is perfect for, especially now, are those, Microsoft Team calls, Zoom calls, Google Hangout calls, all that stuff you're doing web chatting. It's really good at stuff like that. So if you're thinking about picking up a $1,400 Surface Duo, it's not cheap. You might want to save some money. I think that's where something like Ting can really come into play. So first, if you go to john.ting.com and you decide to sign up, you'll get $50 of credits. And part of what the beauty of Ting is, first, you can switch very easily. Use it for a few months while you're home, decide to switch back if you want. But also, it's not a prepaid service. You pay for what you're using, and you're only going to pay for the data that you are actually consuming. And that is a giant value proposition that you just can't get with the other major carriers. Especially now while people are looking to work from home, I think it's really helpful to save your money, so be able to make phone calls like ordinarily would. Porting your number over is incredibly easy. They send you a SIM card and you really just pop it in and you are good to go. They make it very simple. The process of switching phones sometimes can seem daunting. Ting has simplified the process completely. And if you decide to sign up again at john.ting.com, they're gonna give you $50 worth of credit, and that's only good for September. So if you wanna sign up, you may wanna consider doing it sooner rather than later. 1, 2, 3. So I think what's holding the Duo back right now is it holds back a lot of any sort of thing that has a new form factor, and that's third-party apps. Microsoft went with Android because they didn't want to make the same Windows Phone mistake. They wanted app support on their hardware, and that is a giant deal to them. And Android obviously has a huge app marketplace with Google Play, and so that was paramount to Duo's success. But like any new form factor, developers might not want to support it until people start using it, and people might not start using it until developers support it. And that's where I started to run into a lot of problems with the software. So take Instagram, for example, obviously a very popular app that a lot of people use on their phones. When I was in somebody's story, for example, I wanted to swipe home, a simple gesture that you can do on pretty much every other Android device without issue. It didn't work all the time on the Duo. Sometimes I wanted to open two apps side by side, it wouldn't work. And that's where you start to see some of the software bugs that are plaguing at least this iteration of the Duo and this software that we have right now at launch. And the good side about that is software can be fixed. But as you start to use the Duo more and more, and sort of the luster wears off and you have to live with it, use it, work with it, you do start to notice that it's an imperfect device. And as I start to do multiple things and I have those sort of apps that won't open or sometimes stutters and slow down, it's hard to wonder if maybe some of that is also due to hardware. The Snapdragon 855 is in here instead of the 865 Plus that's out right now on premium devices. Probably not so much on that side. 855 is still a very capable chip. What does give me pause though is 6 gigs of RAM. When it comes to Android and multitasking, a device like this that is made to have two apps running fully side by side, I do worry over the longevity of the device that 6 gigs might just not cut it. So yeah, there are definitely some software issues, but the company's name, it's Microsoft. The soft is in there for a reason. They're a software company. So I'm inclined to believe in their track record with the Surface line proves that they move really quickly with software updates. So by the time you watch this video, some of these issues may already have been fixed, and if they are, we'll update it. But I wouldn't let software hold you back from considering the Duo, at least right now. So you look at the Duo from Microsoft's perspective, it's very clear that they do not view this as just a phone, but more a computer in your pocket. Look at the emissions that are on here. You do not have things like wireless charging. You do not have NFC. You do not have any official IP rating. Things that you'd expect your phone to have, but not your laptop. Now, those are still things that are really important to me nowadays. And for those reasons, I'm not sure I could use the Duo as my only device day in and day out. But the Duo as a complementary machine, as a small computer in my pocket that can go along with the smartphone, might be a perfect sweet spot. But at a $1,400 price point, it's a very expensive sweet spot that's probably not for a lot of people right now. And quite frankly, I think that's okay by Microsoft. They are aware of the shortcomings of the Duo, and they know it's not for every consumer out there. But I also think that they know the direction they want the Duo to go, what Gen 2 and Gen 3 might be. And while we are not aware of what that grand vision is, Microsoft's track record, I think, gives them the benefit of the doubt for how the Duo can improve over the years. But judging this as a device right now, as it stands, it's a hard one to recommend for everybody. But if you watch this video and you keep saying, yes, I want that and I need that, that's who the phone is going to be for. As a complementary machine, it excels. As a dedicated phone, I think it falls short. And what the vision is going to be in the future, it's probably somewhere in between.